For you, which is the most interesting puzzle?
For me, the most interesting one is always the next one, the one that I'm working on. You know this answer. I mean, what you see here is a lot of puzzles, and each of them has a little history. I just told you the history and thinking about the pancake cube, and I could show you a bit about the mechanism. But for instance, this is one of Bram's design. It's called Melty A. And there are 4 of them, so we have also Melty B, C and D. So Bram Cohen told me, well, I want to have a geometry with this and this properties. So he specified the geometry, and then I built him a bunch of prototypes, and then we started figuring out what are the properties of this. And if you look at it, at first glance it looks a bit like a Rubik's Cube, but distorted. And when you scramble it, suddenly it doesn't turn like a Rubik's Cube at all. Yeah. So we discovered that some of these, like this one, is pretty scramblable, but some others, I think it was Melty C, that didn't do anything.
I recognize this one. This is on our website.
Yeah, please remind me of its name.
Fusion, I think.
Oh yeah, called Fusion.
Yeah, Oskar gives us some very unique stuff. I think we're the only site in the world that really sells them, and we'd like to thank Oskar for that. It's amazing.
Yeah.
So I have a question. How do you think of these new ideas? Do you dream puzzles?
No, first of all, as I had already mentioned before, is that there is a lot of intellectual ideas from others there as well. So much of it comes from interaction, where somebody comes up with an idea. And okay, let me see whether I can find it. Well, there are many of the Bram things. Here we have a Bram puzzle.
Bram, you mean Bram Cohen, right?
Bram Cohen,
Bram
yes.
Cohen, yep.
So the uncanny cube and the canny uncube. He said, well, let's take 4 of the regular axes of a Rubik's Cube, and then at the 5th one at a strange place, and then see what happens.
So who thinks of the mechanism of you or Bram?
So in this case, the geometry was invented by Bram, and the mechanism was invented by me.
So you work together as sort of a collaboration?
Yes.
Cool.
So yeah, and in some cases it's variations of variations. In some cases it's just an idea of, I wanted to play with gears and then start thinking, how would they interact with each other? Oh,
show this one here.
These are the irrational gears, and we know that for regular gears you have an integer gearing ratio like 2 to 3 or 5 to 10 or etc. But here the gearing ratio is the golden ratio, so that is 1 to I forgot the half of 1 plus square root of 5 or something like that.
Oskar, I don't think anybody else even knows, okay?
Yeah, but anyway, the golden ratio is a very interesting number because it's the irrational number that is the furthest away from any irrational number. So you really the number is almost impossible to approximate by a fraction. So how did I achieve that gearing ratio? Well, here we have a sort of corn shape, another corn shape, and they move against each other. And this shape, it slightly rotates, but it never repeats. Same for that one. And they have a gearing ratio of, I forgot the number, something like 6.5 and 10.5, which is half of an approximation of the golden ratio, but it's not exact, and that's why these lines are not straight but slightly tilted.
So did you do this mathematically, or did you kind of trial and error?
Well, I knew what I wanted, so it is just drawing, and when you're drawing a thing like this in computer-aided design, you start first with the geometry. So you have lines, you have the angles, so I had to calculate the angles, where everything goes. And then, of course, the boring stuff like adding the teeth to them and finding how to terminate the corn part at the end, what that should look like, and all the other details. Cool. It's all done in computer-aided design.
Cool.
And yeah, here you can see how the pieces, the arrows.
That shows how often they turn the ratio.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So at the start, we have they line up exactly, but then when we turn, then
So this orange gear moves as
Yeah.
you do it. Okay.
it just slides over this one.
Very cool.
But what you see with the arrows is that every time when an arrow is there, the other arrow is not in the neighborhood, and sometimes we have near misses, like here.
Okay.
That is an approximation of the golden ratio is 5 divided by 8, but that's not a very accurate one. 8 divided by 13 is a more accurate one. I think that's this one.
Okay.
But you still see the
Slightly off, yeah.
misalignment.
So it's not a puzzle, but that's how you think to make the puzzles.
Right.